This is Bob Larson. Recently, over 500 people gathered in Denver, Colorado to learn about Satanism and its effect on society. By bringing together such experts as Detective Lieutenant Larry Jones of the Cult Crime Impact Network and a teen panel of present Satanists, we communicated important information to those in law enforcement, education, and social services. I opened the symposium with an overview of Satanism in the 20th century.
There are three predominant views in our society regarding the nature of evil. One of those is the Judeo-Christian viewpoint. That's the one most of you are familiar with. Theologically speaking, Jews and Christians hold forth that Satan is the enemy of God and that he is a personal, malignant creature. He is the origin of death and disease and despair, and all that is negative in the universe. The Bible in the Old and New Testament gives us a distinct view of Satan, a created angel, in the presence of God. And interestingly enough, Ezekiel 28 indicates that his sin of pride and rebellion against God was because of his beauty. You will hear much about the darkness of the devil today. But don't mistake that often his greatest tool is to be disguised in illumination. He wanted to be like God, Jewish and Christian theology says. He said, I will exalt my throne above that of God. I will be like God. The Bible foretells his ultimate consignment and judgment, and holds forth the note of eventual victory over all that is evil. The second prevailing view in our society is the secular humanist viewpoint, which essentially treats evil as the absence of good rather than the presence of personal malignancy. Now, in the secularist viewpoint, the devil is a convenient archetypal myth, a metaphor, a representation of all that is bad in human history. And to personify it, this being called Lucifer has been conjured in the minds of people. He's not real. And evil is merely the presence of what happens when good men do nothing. The third viewpoint in our culture is the one you are going to be educated about today, and that is the Satanist viewpoint. Now, there are a couple of components to that. There's the dabbler Satanist. To him, the devil is merely a convenient excuse to explore evil curiosity. To the self-styled Satanist, who constructs his own rituals and ceremonies out of his imagination or books in the occult in which he's read, the devil is a rationale for essentially rebellious and antisocial behavior. To the generational Satanist, whose family has been involved in occultism, in some cases for centuries, it's a philosophical explanation for ritual abuse being perpetuated. And finally, the fourth kind of Satanist viewpoint is the religious Satanist, who sees the devil as a means of self-gratification for every vice he wishes to pursue. These three viewpoints essentially tell us where culture is today. Now, let me make it very plain. It doesn't really matter whether you are Jewish or Christian or whether you are a humanist. You must understand that the symposium today is predicated on this premise. There are people who do believe in the devil, and they are willing to commit heinous acts in his name. They are willing to lie, to steal, and yes, even kill. So if you're not a religious person, you still need to listen carefully to what is said, because it really doesn't matter. What does matter is that there are people, most of them aberrational in their emotional dysfunction, who are seeking an outlet for things they have been unable to cope with in life, and Satanism becomes that vent for them. If you were to ask me, the greatest weapon that Satan has in our society, and I'm alluding to him as a personal creature out of my own belief system, I would say it is this: silence. The silence of the Christian community, the silence of the law enforcement community, the silence of the educational community, the silence of our political leaders, the silence of our preachers and our teachers. The silence that says, if we ignore it, it will go away. It hasn't, and it won't.
After my opening remarks, the focus turned to satanic ritual crimes. Detective Lieutenant Larry Jones has served on the Boise, Idaho police force for 19 years. Like most law enforcement officials, Larry was at first skeptical about ritual crime until he started to seriously seek the facts. He soon realized that satanic ritual crime is not mere imagination.
I am here as a representative of the Cult Crime Impact Network, which is a private nonprofit corporation incorporated in Idaho, primarily to disseminate training information, intelligence data, and resource information throughout the law enforcement community. Now, we have found out in the last 4 years that it's just not a police problem only. This is a society problem. This is a community problem. Certainly police officers do not have the resources or training or perhaps personality that they need to get into long-term counseling for a victim that's come out of the cults or survived the cults. They need somebody in the therapy community. They need somebody in the clergy. They need somebody to come alongside. Certainly police officers may not be attuned or have time or resources to go out and do public education for schools, for churches, for parent-teacher groups, on the awareness level of this thing. So the entire community needs to be involved. And wherever you live, start developing those trusted resources back in your community that are involved in the media. And there are trustworthy media people, regardless of what you believe. You can work with them. Somebody that'll put something in perspective and that isn't going to just go out and sensationalize for the ratings. There are people in education, in the schools. There are people in the psychological therapy community. There are certainly people in the churches. There are professionals, there are lay people that are interested in helping you because they too are concerned with this problem. And when it gets right down to it, it's happening right in their own living room, it's happening with their own children, and it scares people to death. I don't know where you're at personally with this problem. I'd like to drop back and lead you through the pathway that I had to go through as a very skeptical police officer in order to come to the place today where I believe that a largely unprovable problem actually exists. In 1985, some statistics came across my desk, as they did yours, that in and of themselves were concerning. In combination, they bowled me over. The first one was the runaway statistic. Now, depending on whose list you look at, there are 2 runaways in the United States, or 2.5 million. Well, That's pretty broad range. The second statistic is a very controversial one you may have heard about. It was generated by Dr. Al Carlisle, who's a psychiatrist for the Utah State Prison System. He interviewed a number of Satanists in prison. Now granted, cons have a vested interest in exaggerating, don't they? So let's build that factor in already. But he talked to these guys back in 85, 84, and they started telling him things about what they did, why they did it, how often they do it. And one thing they started talking about was human sacrifice. That's pretty bizarre. But he listened, and it became more apparent that there was a method in what could be called their madness. Based on what they told him about what they thought were the number of active satanic groups in the country that would be at that level of worship, and the number of times a year that they would do that, he came up with an estimate, underlying estimate. It's not verifiable at this time. He estimated that between 50 and 60,000 ritual homicides occur in this country every year. I just lost all the policemen, okay? They're all skeptical. They're saying, oh, come on, where are the bodies? Where are the kidnap reports? You know, this would be just like Auschwitz. They'd be stacked up like cordwood at Main Street. Policemen and other people in criminal justice, let's open our eyes. We are not secure in our systems. Our systems have loopholes in them. They have loopholes big enough to drive a tank through. But we're secure. We think that if we've investigated every murder that's reported to us in our jurisdiction, that that's all the murders we had. Yet we know that there are unreported murders that occur all the time, that we don't find out about for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. We may never find out about them. So the number of reported murders is not the number of murders in this country. Supervisory Special Agent Ken Lanning from the FBI Behavioral Sciences Unit has been quoted across the country as saying that UCR, the Uniform Crime Report, indicates we have about 20,000 murders in the country a year. And that people that believe things like myself and other speakers on this topic are saying about 50 to 60,000 or 500,000 or whatever the number might be, ritual sacrifices, you know, they're incredible. He basically thinks anybody that would believe that is suckers. And he said, if that is true, then what we have is the greatest criminal conspiracy in the history of mankind. Folks, he hit it right on the head.
As a police officer, Larry Jones knows there's an availability pool of victims for satanic crimes. Jones discussed 3 groups of individuals which emerged during a study of crime statistics.
Another part of the availability pool that was really startling were the repeated stories that we got about babies being used. Now think about tracing. If the system is working correctly, your wife goes to the hospital, has the baby under doctor's care, footprints are taken, the birth certificate is officialized, and ultimately the child is enrolled in school and gets a social security number now so that you can deduct them and all this stuff, and there's a track record. What about a baby that was conceived during a ritual with all the trappings of secrecy, developed in the womb of a cult-controlled female who was moved around on a regular basis so nobody really got close to her to find out what was going on, was either induced or taken at full term during a ritual, sacrificed on the slab, the body completely consumed or otherwise destroyed, and no witnesses willing to come forward and say, hey, yeah, man, I'm a participant in a baby killing. You know, no problem. What about those kids? They aren't traceable. They're easily available. Sex is a big part of the rituals. Instant reward and other purposes for continuing the line of Satanism if it's a generational group. But we started hearing these stories, and at the same time these bizarre, unbelievable stories started to surface, so did the dead bodies. Not a lot of them, more lately, but not a lot of them in 85 and 86. But about the time that statistic came out, the officers in Bend, Oregon, Deschutes County Sheriff's Office, located the decapitated remains of a newborn infant in a garbage bag in a dumpster. The garbage bag was an expensive drawstring variety that's not even sold in the area. The baby's head was more decomposed than the body. What's that tell you? They were separated for a period of time, stored differently. The body's arms were elongated like this, as if it had been hung upside down and drained of blood. The umbilical cord had a knot in it. There was a baby in Connecticut, I believe, Santeria, ritual murder. There was a baby in Lafayette Parish, Louisiana, found in a landfill. Its organs removed, mutilated. The landfill workers drove over it, and sack broke, and they started recognizing parts. Okay? Those aren't all the babies, but they're cases in point. How are the bodies disposed of? Why aren't we seeing these bodies dumped all over the place? Satanists are utilitarian. They eat them, they drink them, they save parts of them like the bones, they burn them, and they save the ashes and use them in future rituals. They feed them to the hogs, they throw them in lye pits, they put them down industrial garbage disposals, they take them to their local Satanist crematorium at the funeral home and burn them up at 3 in the morning. They bury them in the woods, they throw them down mine shafts. They do all number of things. It doesn't take much of an imagination to figure out how to get rid of a body, especially if that body is a newborn infant whose bones are so soft that they will be consumed totally by fire. Where are the missing person reports? Well, we talked about all these untraceable people. Who's going to file the report? The Satanists know better than to kidnap somebody off their front porch, because that raises a hue and cry. You've got everybody, including the radio amateurs, out looking for this kid. You've got fire department divers checking the canals and lakes. You've got PTAs and Boy Scout troops walking through the fields. You've got the radio stations and the media and everybody. The pedophiles who actually do this are on the run, and that's why they kill their victims so quickly, because they know that within 24 hours the hue and cry is going to be out. Satanists don't want that type of exposure, but there's plenty of human flesh out there that's available for the taking. And in addition to all those available people, there are people in their own covens who buy into the lie that the sacrifice of themselves is the greatest sacrifice to Satan, the ultimate sacrifice. So they even offer themselves up. And these are cleverly concealed by the doctor or coroner or funeral director who happens to be part of the group or controlled by the group as a natural death. We've gone over, and I want to reinforce again, the convoluted logic behind the statistics. The opponents of what I'm trying to say we have no stats, therefore we have no problem. I am saying we have no awareness, therefore we have no official reporting, therefore we have no stats generated from the reporting, therefore we have no documentation of the problem.
After Detective Lieutenant Jones spoke, he took audience questions. One of the audience members expressed concern about the activities of her friends.
Hi, I'm Rebecca from Tampa, Florida, and I was wondering if you used to be involved with the people that are doing this kind of thing, and you know that they sacrifice animals. Well, what do you do? I mean, I wasn't into any of that, but I've seen, like I've been over there and I've seen their altars and the cats and all that.
What were you involved with?
Just with all that heavy metal music. This was back when and they're still practicing it now.
And you saw what satanic altars these kids had?
Mm-hmm. And goat skulls and that thing right there on one, and those Bible things and all kinds of feathers and the cats. And they sacrificed a dog out at the club I used to lifeguard at. And I know them all, but I don't know.
So the question is, what do you do to get through to these kids or reach them, or what?
Yeah, I'm afraid to say anything, because I don't know what they're capable of doing, and I don't know who I could tell. But I know them, and I know where they live, and I know what they do, but I don't know how to handle it.
Address for a second, if you would, Larry, this fear factor, because Rebecca's pointed out something I've often encountered as well. People are afraid to come forward with information. There are legitimate threats on people's lives, threats to do harm, or threats to harm a loved one.
Fear is probably the first and most used tool of Satan to control others. If you're deathly afraid that I will kill you the next time you see me, and you know that I hang out at Kmart all the time, you'll avoid Kmart like the plague, won't you? Now, if I move to someplace else, I can keep you out of there too. So by adjusting the direction of the fear, I can adjust what you do. And it's much more, complex than that in human relationships. I would say the first thing you need to do is write down in journal form, get whatever pictures you can to really document what you know for a fact. As a policeman, I don't care what I care what you think, but I can't use what you think. I have to use what you can prove. And then you take that to a pastor or a policeman or a therapist or somebody in more of a position of authority, and I don't know what sphere of responsibility you have or you're hooked into, and start taking this evidence forward. And you just may be a small piece of the puzzle, but unbeknownst to you, somebody else may have added another piece of the puzzle to the same police department or the same social service group or whatever, and it's going to click. Don't put your neck out, but don't run scared all the time either.
When Detective Lieutenant Jones finished his presentation, I told the audience about a caller to my nationally syndicated talk show, Talk Back. David phoned to tell me he would do anything for Satan, even murder. David is only one of many troubled teens I hear from who became involved in Satanism through black metal music.
I recall very well the day that I got a phone call from my good friend Bob Lucioni Jr. I keep strange friends, as some of you know who listen to me, and said to me, could you catch a plane Friday to Frankfurt, Germany? I'd like you to tour with Slayer. Actually, the circumstances came about as a result of a conversation Bob and I had had a couple of weeks before, and he said, I think one of the most fascinating things would be to put Bob Larson on tour with a black metal band. He said, the problem is finding someone that would allow Bob to go. And when he called me that day, he said, we've been looking all over for the right group. We found one called Death, and we decided they weren't bad enough. And so we waited for Slayer. I said, yeah, I'll do it. You can imagine the apprehension of the guys in the group when they saw me. At least I wasn't carrying an 18-pound Bible and wearing a white polyester suit as they had anticipated. But I spent a week on tour with the guys. I was with them everywhere. Backstage, on the bus, with the sweet smell of hashish wafting through the air. I saw them at their best and at their worst. And I made a number of observations that I think are apropos to what we're trying to get to the bottom of here today. 7 years ago, Slayer was just an unknown garage band in L.A. Nobody knew who they were. And as they said to me, we decided the fastest route to stardom and success was Satanism. There's something terribly tragic about that. The fastest way to success in entertainment in the rock and roll industry, Satanism. So they adopted the apparent lifestyles, the dress, the language, and all the paraphernalia of Satanists. On this particular tour, their stage backdrop was a huge screen that in the center among the drummer had about a 10-foot in diameter pentagram, and on either side were depicted large stained glass windows with upside-down crosses. Backstage, they were busy belching beer and playing touch football with a little rubber football. But the moment they came on stage, they were the fire-breathing demons of rock and roll and assumed an evil persona that made the kids believe it was real. Back on the bus afterwards, all they were interested in doing was reading porn magazines and watching Chuck Norris movies, which tells you something about their IQ. It was like celebrity schizophrenia.
And I played for them one evening in Nuremberg, Germany, a cassette. It was a cassette of a young man by the name of David. I wrote about him in my book, Satanism, the Seduction of America's Youth, and some of you remember David calling. David was the young man in Canada who took propane torches and burned satanic diagrams into his arms. David was a young man who played in a black metal group, who went to the cemetery to dig up corpses and have sex with them. David was the young man who killed animals, torturing them slowly. A young man whose earliest memory was at 3 years of age, his alcoholic father putting a pistol to his head and threatening to pull the trigger. I played that tape of David's conversation the day he called me for Slayer. And in that conversation he had with me on Talkback, David said, I got into Satanism because of Slayer. And the guys in the band sat around and listened to the tape, and when it was finished, I said, well, here is a young man who kills animals, who has mutilated his own body, and he has done it in the name of Satan. And furthermore, on that same tape, David said, if the devil will give me what I want until 17 years of age, then I will begin killing in his name, and I will kill as many people as I can until they catch me. Now, I said to the members of Slayer, I'd like to put a blank tape in this machine, and I'd like you to record a message that I can take back and play to David. What do you think they did? Nothing. They refused. They said, hey man, it's not our problem. Kid was screwed up to begin with. He had a bad home, a bad family. I said, yeah, that's all true. But I said, what good did you do? Do you bear no responsibility? Can you find in yourself no sense of accountability for even giving him a gentle nudge over the edge into the arms of evil? And they said, it's not our problem. It's not our fault. We have nothing we can say to him. That young man, David, has turned his life around because of our compassion connection. Doing what Slayer didn't do, showing him real love and kindness over a period of many months. And some of you may have heard the day that David called back on the air to share how he had learned what true love is all about, how he had become a Christian, and how his whole life was different. No longer mutilating himself, no longer digging up corpses, no longer thinking evil thoughts, and no longer wanting to kill for Satan. To Slayer, it was an act. It was showbiz, a way to make a buck, a way to get where they were going. To this young man, it was all too real. It's easy to dismiss what's going on in our culture today without realizing the desensitization process that's taking place, and realize that we're on a very dangerous spiral downward in our culture, and somebody must do something quickly. May I implore you with what you are hearing today, don't do what Slayer did. Don't shrug your shoulders and say, Hey, it's not my fault. I didn't raise the kid. What do you expect me to do about it? As citizens, and many of us as people of deep religious faith, we are compelled to carry a message to these desperate young people that their lives have value, that they're important, and that love is more powerful than hate.
When you want to learn about Satanism and its effect on teens, listen to the teens themselves who are involved in Satanism. At the symposium, we featured a panel of current teen Satanists who candidly discuss their allegiance to Satan. Jeff and Jay are members of the same coven, though their individual worship of the devil differs.
This gentleman over here, Jeff, would you like to tell us about last Tuesday night?
Tuesday was October 31st and it was Halloween. I was baptized as a Satanist on Halloween.
How?
How? Through the satanic rituals.
How?
I started out in a white cloak. After the invocation, I drank from the chalice.
What was in the chalice?
Bacardi and Mountain Dew, I believe.
I doubt that very much.
No, that's what was in
in
there. Bacardi and Mountain Dew.
No blood?
No blood. I do not believe in blood rituals. Whatever.
Jay,
Whatsoever.
shake your head. Now, you know very well that it's normal to have blood in that ceremony, so...
And yeah, wait, what are you getting this out of? Because I'd like to read this.
My guess is that you did this especially so that you could kind of say, we'll tell Larson it was Mountain Dew. So you didn't use blood?
No, I did not.
All right.
I do not believe in blood rituals whatsoever.
Okay, so you didn't drink blood. Then
Okay, after
who did you invoke?
invoke,
Yeah, you said you...
the invocation,
Yeah, who did you invoke? To whom?
the infernal, the four crown princes of hell, which are Belial, Leviathan, Satan, and Lucifer.
You called them forth.
Yes,
Did they come?
I believe so.
You don't know.
Not in a physical form, no.
Did you sense them?
Yes, it did.
You felt them.
I felt a very dark presence there.
Didn't bother you.
No, it did not. After the invocation, I shed the white robe. And yes, I was sky-clad, as they so well, as you put it in the book.
That's naked, folks.
I then proceeded to sit on a stool.
Now you know why I was worried that he was freezing.
I then sat on a stool. After a couple of rites were read, a candle was passed beneath my feet. Then earth was packed on my feet and my palms.
Why? Earth.
Purification. Then water was sprinkled over me.
What kind of water?
Seawater. I'd like to make a couple comments if I could. Except for my religious views, I am a normal person. I realize all you people today, the way that I dress, the emblems that I wear, do make you hesitant to talk to me. Now granted, some people have. It's my preference of religion. I'm not a leper, anything like that. You can come and talk to me. I am a normal human being.
But you're wearing an upside-down cross and a pentagram around your neck. These are
Very
symbols.
true. It's a symbol of my religion. That's like telling me that somebody who's wearing a cross here, but a straight cross, to me, that's not my religion.
Well, wait a minute. Episcopalian, this is not. I mean, there's a big difference.
Oh, I realize.
This is Satan.
I realize that.
You are proclaiming your allegiance to self-aggrandizing, indulgence,
Yes.
vice, hate,
And
anger,
love.
revenge. Love. It's not in the 9 satanic statements.
No, but if you read on there, in the Satanic Bible does talk about love and compassion.
To those whom
Who
you personally
we-
deem to deserve it.
That's right.
Well,
Because
no, but
that makes sense
but
to me, Bob.
Jeff.
Yeah, Bob?
Hitler
Hitler wasn't a
deemed
Satanist.
that there were 6 million Jews who deserved to die, he'd have made a great Satanist.
But he wasn't, and what he did happened before I was born, happened before the Church of Satan was around, has nothing to do with my viewpoints.
But it was somebody making his own determination what other people deserved. And when any individual in this room starts making up his own mind about what other people deserve, we consider him psychotic. You are a Satanist.
Yeah, very much so.
An ex-Lutheran.
Yeah.
Where did the Reformation fail?
God.
God failed? How did God fail?
God failed me.
How?
Showed me nothing at all. Emotionally, spiritually, physically.
Nothing.
Not a thing.
And what did Satanism show you?
Peace of mind.
Worshiping the devil gives you peace of mind.
It's made me a lot happier.
How?
I've gotten a lot more peace of mind. I'm more at peace with myself. I'm not as angry or as hostile as I used to be, which is probably, you guys think is a lot of, but
You were an angry person.
very much. I had worked around with the worst attitude than
How
he did.
can Satanism resolve anger?
Because through that, you're not lying to yourself. It's not self-deceit. You're not building up pipe dreams that don't exist. You're dealing with yourself. You worship your own mind, your own.
So are you telling me that peace and love and turning the other cheek and kindness toward your neighbor is a pipe dream? That's what
No,
you're
I'm
saying.
talking about the institution of the church. The set up Judeo-Christian laws of humanity is what I don't agree with.
What do you do for the devil if you don't kill cats and burn little babies? And what do you do? Just run naked through the woods?
Well, only on Saturday. No, I'm kidding. Through, I guess you could call it allegiance.
You do ceremonies to
Yeah.
Satan.
Yeah.
You have your own book of shadows.
I don't know if you call it the Book of Shadows. I'm not self-styled at all. I'm very religious.
What assurances do we have in a community living somewhere near you that these evil powers that we've heard so much about today that seem to be so incredibly malignant aren't just playing you along right now, and that given the right opportunity you would slip over the edge and become another Sean Sellers?
Because I don't have a brain disorder. I'm not, in his case, mentally disturbed.
You're saying that Sean was?
Thank you. Yeah.
Jay is referring to Sean Sellers, the youngest person on death row at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. One night, after performing several satanic rituals, Sean went into his parents' bedroom and murdered them in cold blood. He has since become a Christian. He spends much of his time in prison reaching out to other teens involved in Satanism and sharing the truth of God's love. Sean joined the teen panel through a telephone hookup from his cell on death row.
Say hello to Sean, folks.
Hey, that's a relief. I was getting the impression that I wasn't too well liked around here.
Hand the microphone to Jay there. Did you hear a while ago, Sean, the suggestion that
That I'm a nut, yeah.
yeah, that you're crazy?
Right.
Are you?
No?
Were you?
Were I? Oh, that's debatable. Maybe, but I don't think so.
So it was demons.
Well, do you believe in demons, Jay?
This is Jay talking here.
Not specifically they're going to take over your body, no.
What did you ask them to?
Said not specifically, not if they're going to take over your body, no, I sure don't.
Say that again.
Do what, Sean?
Say that again.
He said he doesn't believe the demons can take over one's body.
Okay, so if you say, here is my body, take it, they can't do it.
Not if you don't want them to.
No. If you want them to.
I still don't believe that. I believe there's powers out there, but I don't believe that they've got 100% control over a human mind.
No.
Could they, if you wanted them to, could they come in and possess?
You can do whatever you want and claim it to be whatever you want. But it's
you-
still me or Sean or someone doing an act. It's not a demon.
You said that Sean was crazy.
At the time, he might have been. It could have been a psychotic release. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Satan had nothing to do with it.
I don't believe so.
Did it, Sean?
Well, we have all kinds of explanations about what exactly went on inside of me. But the facts of the matter are that I was sitting in an altar of Satan every night for months, praying to demons, invoking them, and asking them to enter my body. And the more I did that, and the more I kept going without sleep, without rest, the less control I had over myself. Now, whether we want to debate either, if that was my subconscious that was taking over whenever I wasn't there, or if it was demons, that's up to whoever believes whatever. But the fact is that whenever I gave out, when Sean Sellers was out of it, whenever he couldn't go anymore, his body kept going, and it went by the name Ezra. Now, what was that?
There was your imagination.
He says it was your imagination, Sean.
That's a pretty good imagination.
It
Yeah.
was an imagination that led him to kill 3 people,
It was
Jay.
the subconscious. Or his conscious in the case of the convenience store clerk.
Well, man, what's the difference? I mean, if you've got an evil subconscious that's based upon revenge and hate, and instead of doing to others as you would have them do unto you, smack them first, what's to keep you from pulling the trigger and blowing somebody's brains out,
What's
Jay?
to keep you from doing it?
Something much different. A principle of goodness, a principle of rightness.
A principle of morals, the same as I.
An indwelling power that is spiritual and that is supernatural and that represents the positive. Christ, God.
Let's stick with Christ. God's just as much of a murderer as anyone else is.
God's a murderer. Sean?
You want me to test that?
Well, yeah.
wanna
Matter
get real
Sean, since you were a murderer, yes.
Well, Jay,
Yeah.
if you want to get just real deliberate here, God is the creator of all things. And if he so chooses to destroy what he creates, that's up to him. That's his right.
So it's his right, just as it's a person's right, and a being's right, and an entity's right to do as they choose and do what they want, right?
That's right. God has said
I rest my
that
case,
you
Bob.
have the right to do whatever you want to do. If you want to obey his rules, you can. If you don't have to. God's not going to make you.
Yeah, but you see, Jay, the problem is you're trying to indict God when you haven't walked on water or flung a few billion stars into the skies yet. So it would not be too...
I think Jay got hold of a very stupid legalistic church who told him that everything he wanted to do was wrong, and he decided that that was what God had to say, and decided since he couldn't do anything by being a Christian, he was going to be a Satanist and was permissible to do everything.
Hang on, let me jump in there. Is that fairly accurate, Jay?
Not directly, no. I mean, if I can do whatever I want and be forgiven for it, what's the difference?
Well, it wouldn't be forgiveness if it weren't
Well,
forgiveness
if I had
for
Jesus
whatever
Christ
you...
as a part of
If
me and I'd be
forgiveness were
forgiven for my
limited, it
sins.
wouldn't be forgiveness.
Pardon me?
Forgiveness is not forgiveness if it's conditional. You see? You see, your problem is you play devil and then you try and act like God. You can't have it both ways.
I'm not out to play the devil, and I'm not out to try and act like God.
What happened to you? You were in the church at one time. You went through
Yeah.
catechism.
Yeah?
Why did you turn your back on it?
Because it turned its back on me. The whole Christian belief turned its back on me.
Why?
I started
How?
asking questions, and I got accused of blasphemy and kicked straight out of the church.
Accused of blasphemy. Well, they were wrong. They shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, they're a
So
bunch
they
of
made
idiots.
they made a
They don't have
mistake.
anything to do
Well,
with God.
I'm not holding them responsible for where
Yeah, you
I am
are.
now.
Yeah, you
Not
are.
specifically, I'm
yeah,
holding.
you're sitting there trying to kick
I'm holding
the church
a lot
in the
of
teeth.
things. I'm holding a lot of things responsible for where I am now. I'm not up here to argue Scripture. I'm up here to let people know that there's a difference between people who murder and people who are doing disgusting, psychopathic things, and
Sean,
people who represent.
All right,
us.
Sean, you were failed by Christians, by Christianity, weren't you?
Yeah, God failed me too. I hated God for him failing me
Why'd you go back to him?
because I found out I was wrong. I found out that God didn't fail me, that people had, and I had blamed God for the mistakes people had made.
Okay, I want to get some questions from the audience here.
I'm Floyd Price. I'm a police detective from Lubbock, Texas. And I'd like to ask you two young men on the end over here, you know, it seems like to me you want to be wishy-washy. If you're going to be a Satanist, why not say I'm a Satanist and I do what Satanists do? I practice according to my satanic Bible. Why you
The
trying
Church of Satan knows I'm here.
Let me
Bob
finish.
Antomave sends his regards.
Okay, let me finish this, then I'll let you answer my question. You know, Christians, we'll say that we are accustomed to doing what our God tell us to do, and we don't mind you Satanists knowing that. Why is it that you want to try to wishy-washy and go across on this side and go across on that side? Satanist stands for everything that God is against. And if you're a Satanist, you're going to stand for everything that Christians is against. So now, tell me this. Why try to play both sides of the field? Stay on your side and say, we're this, then we can deal with you.
My religion
I think what the
is-
man's saying, if he's going to be bad, just be bad.
My religion is Satanism, it's not blasphemism.
Okay.
Hi, Mark from San Diego. I have kind of a twofold question for Jeff and Jay there.
Okay.
First of all, Satan, the term Satan, do you view that as more of a concept, an idea, or as more of an evil entity that you worship? And I guess my second question is, without denouncing your satanic beliefs, if you think about it, is there anything that anybody could say or do or anything that might happen in any event that would change your mind and change your beliefs?
Are you likely to change? And who is the devil really to you,
Okay.
Jeff?
First of all, the devil to me is, there are 4 separate entities. In my belief, as I said, I'm a self-styled Satanist. I'm very much in the spiritual aspect of Satanism. There are 4 separate entities. Satanism is what it's called because that's the most widely known name. There are 4 separate deities. In my religion, the way I view it, like I said, I am self-styled, though.
You're not answering the question. Are these real?
Yeah, I
literal?
believe they're
are
real.
Are they beings somewhere?
They are, just like
Where?
God. Just
Where?
like God.
Is it warm where they are?
Bob. I'd already talked to you about this, and you told me over the radio that, yeah, that's exactly how I wanted to picture it. I do not picture hell as a place of fire and brimstone. And not because that's what's best for me, because I don't really believe it is
So these
like
are,
that.
but these are real 4 beings. They are somewhere.
There are 4 beings, entities.
And are they like helping you now?
Are they helping me now?
Did you call upon them before you came here today?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I figure if I have to face an entire crowd of people, I
You
should be
would
able
if
to
you'd
do
have
it
known who
by
I called
myself,
upon before I got here
mentally.
today. Did you call upon the devil before you came here today? You asking for
I
help?
called upon myself. I treat myself as my own God. My highest worship day of the year is my own birthday.
So there's not a real. He says there are 4 beings sitting
He's
somewhere.
self-styled.
Okay, you're different. You're saying no. It's just a principle. It's an ambiguous principle.
It's a way of life more than it is a religion.
Jeff and Jay are prime examples of today's teens involved in the snare of Satan. They laugh at the danger while living in deceit. One day during talkback, I received a call from a young woman involved in Satanism. A listener wanted to pay her way to the symposium, hoping she would be confronted by the devil's deceit and learn about God's grace.
This is my friend Ann. Hi.
Hi.
She rode a bus all the way from Edmonton to be with us here today. And now you had a ceremony Tuesday night, huh?
You betcha.
What'd you do?
Well, we had rituals. We had the blood thing that I told you about. By the way, it did not taste putrid. We had a bit of a party after, and we just did whatever we felt like doing.
Hey, leave it to beavers, just, you know. And you had blood.
Oh, yeah. But we watch who's we take, because, you know, like, maybe some Satanists ain't worried about catching something, but I'm worried, like, for myself, and I won't take it from someone in my coven that I think may have something, you know.
Well, whose blood was this?
A friend,
They give it willingly?
of course.
What'd you do?
They sliced their arm, and we put it into a chalice, and mixed it a tiny bit with, diluted it a bit with water, because, you know, he needed, you know, some of his blood at least, eh? And I blessed it, and
You blessed the blood?
yeah,
In whose name?
Satan's name.
Jay's not your kind of Satanist over there, huh?
No, I think Anton LaVey is a bit of a circus act.
You know what you Satanists need is a pope to tell you all what to do. I can't. So, what is Jay kind of wimping out?
Not really, like, it's his style of Satanism. Like, there are different forms.
Hey, your devil, my devil, whatever, huh?
Something like that. Like,
So you drank the blood,
yeah,
but you had diluted.
a tiny bit. It looked like a real dark, nice red wine, you know.
Okay, so after the Chardonnay, then what?
Well, we had a invocation and did the blessings and cursings, and
Who, cursed? No, you didn't curse someone, did you?
some enemies, but that was about it.
Where'd you get the invocation?
It's my own.
You made up your own.
Yep.
What's it sound like?
I don't want to say it.
Why not?
Well, I borrow some of my stuff from
You can say it. I'm not worried.
nah, I don't want to say it all. Like, I can't remember all of it exactly right now. I can't, you know. It's just something I prefer not to say.
Hand him the microphone there. What do you want to know, Jay?
Where'd you get the ingredients for all of it?
Pardon me?
Where'd you get the ingredients for the invocation? Where'd you get your ideas?
Well, when I first got into Satanism, I come from Canada, and I know the persecution that you guys have down here, but up there it's more like some books aren't sold. The first book that I ever looked at was Anton LaVey. Like, I don't agree with all of his principles. Like, I do believe in a devil. I do believe in demons. But,
Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. The guy in the inn has got 4 entities floating off somewhere in a warm place. Jay over here, he's got nothing but self-indulgence and himself as a god, and you've got a real personal devil?
well, I believe in one, but I'm also my own God. I decide to do what I want to do. Like, there's nothing wrong with him indulging. There's nothing wrong with this guy believing in the 4 crown princes of hell. You know, it's there.
There's nothing wrong with Jews living what they want. There's nothing wrong with Christians living what they want, or Episcopalians, or Baptists.
Exactly. You want to believe what you want to believe, that's up to you. But I don't agree with all of Anton LaVey's philosophy. Some of it, yes, but not all of it.
So you just drank a little blood and called it a night, huh?
No, we discussed different coven matters and, you know, gave praises to Satan. I mean, Halloween is I prefer to call it unholy day. And
You gave praise to Satan. How do you give praise to Satan?
evocations, chants, stuff like that.
Just like hymns you sing?
No, but we do blaspheme the Christian religion. I mean,
Like break any crosses or anything? Spit on the Bible?
well, actually, I prefer to mock the communion.
Over 500 concerned citizens joined me in Denver to participate in Compassion Connection's Satanism Symposium. They left with several important facts. First, whether you believe in Satan or not, others do, and are committing heinous crimes in his name. Second, satanic ritual crimes are increasing and are extremely difficult to prove. If you or someone else has been victimized, you must find a law enforcement official you can trust and provide concrete evidence to build a case. Third, teenagers are a primary target of evil. Satan bedevils them with dysfunctional families, beguiles them with promises of love and power, then befriends them into an allegiance that overrides their morality. What can you and I do to stop Satan's attacks on our families, our communities, and our nation? We can choose goodness and God. Let it not be said of us that evil triumphed, because we did nothing. In Luke chapter 10 in the Gospels,
The disciples faced the powers of darkness, and they went out in the name of Christ. They returned quite excited at what happened. And they said, Lord, you're not going to believe what happened. I mean, you know, all those demons and devils running around out there? All we had to do was speak your name. They were subject to us. The response of Christ was, yes, I know. I was there when Lucifer fell in the beginning. I saw what happened. And I have given you power over the enemy. But don't get excited about that. There's something that's more important. Your names are written in heaven. What Christ was pointing out, simply this. The greatest power we have to thwart evil is forgiveness. Forgiveness. God forgiving us, and then forgiving others their trespasses, knowing that we trespass against them. Every participant of Satanism that I have met, including these here today, speak of having been hurt and wronged by others. And that barrier of unforgiveness is what has kept them in their state of embracing evil. As we walk forth from here today, my prayer is that every single one of you will seek to embrace people with forgiveness and to look about you for those who may feel unloved and not cared for, and embrace them with God's love.
For more information about Satanism, write to Compassion Connection, Box 36C, Denver, Colorado 80236.